Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming in this afternoon. This is Tuesday, July 16th, and this is the Government Operations and Regulations Committee meeting. I am detecting a quorum with myself, Council members Benton, Eastlick, Nash, Stiles, and Webb. That brings the count to 1, 2, 3, to 6. I've not been made aware of any public comments, so we'll move on to our very lengthy and time agenda here. We have 2 items on second reading. The first is substitute BL 2024-441 by Councilmember Stiles. This amends section 16.24.340 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding algae, moss, mold, mildew, lichen, and fungus. Do I have a motion?
Move.
A second. All right. We'll turn it over to the sponsor.
You seconded.
Oh, I thought you said it. So do we have a second?
I'll say it for discussion.
Yeah, we'll
We do
take
have
it
a
for
second.
discussion.
All right.
Yeah, because I want her to, I want to hear what, I want to, yeah, just go, okay.
I just simplified
Thank you,
mine.
Councilmember Webb.
All right.
Okay.
You typically with seconds.
So, this bill, as substituted, would actually, it takes the mold out because code can't actually address mold. And so it really comes down to algae on the side of homes. This would be something that's added to the same code that addresses high grass, or, oh, someone has a broken shutter, or they've got a ripped screen. These are all things that codes looks at now. For me, I have had complaints before asking if codes could come out and address a home that is covered in algae. And so that is what this bill emanated from, was constituent conversations.
All right. Councilmember Benton.
So I actually did a comment interview in support of this earlier.
Well, thank you.
Well,
kind
you're
sir.
welcome. And now I feel like I have to back it out.
Oh, no. Did Councilmember Webb do it?
not do that.
No kidding. But listen, here's the deal. After speaking to codes and them showing me what they actually have on the books now, they do have something, and it was something that I see and have seen recently, and that is what looked like a planter, but it was a gutter.
What?
And it had plants growing in it, but it was brought to my attention that that is actually more of a violation because it doesn't allow the water flow, and it's already written in, and also anything that would affect, the damaging of the wood, that kind of thing. So I think that was part of the bill, wasn't it?
No, that is actually, that has been taken out entirely. That's why you don't see it, because Director Herbert,
Right.
So I had spoken with our property standards chief.
Right.
They had mentioned that they had seen weeds growing on homes and growing over an entire side of the house. And then ultimately, Director Herbert said, you know what, I don't want to get into that because some people have English ivy on their house and then it just makes it complicated. So I took that out. So the only thing that we're addressing in this bill now is algae. And that is not addressed in the code at all. And I've had people put in hub requests for that, only to be told that that is something that's not covered. But it is something that people do complain about.
Right. Now,
Oh, wait to be
I'm sorry.
recognized.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up?
yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
If someone here from codes
Yeah.
could help us understand or put in perspective maybe, but how do you go about discerning and enforcing the algae type thing? And part of my response was that it affects property values. Now, for sure, and it may do damage depending on what kind of outside we're talking about to the home. And there is a quick, easy fix with a big box store, something you spray on and then spray off. Does a pretty good job and it's inexpensive. But in practicality, how would codes be able to enforce this, and how would this work?
That's a really good question. We're not sure because, as the council member mentioned, we don't have regulation on mold. Neither does the health department. So that's something that there's not really a precedent set for. We do have some questions as far as how the inspections would work. One, and I know you guys are all aware of this, we inspect from the right of way. Our inspectors can't get up close to the house, get on the roof, things like that. And then would we be testing the algae, or?
This is not about testing. This is standing,
Jennifer.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is you standing in the same right of way. If you're standing on a sidewalk and you're looking at a white house and it's a regular neighborhood and there's space and the entire side of the house is green, ta-da, there's algae. And it's just an abatement letter, clean the side of your house. I'm not asking for any testing whatsoever.
Sure.
This is just in the same way that we send an abatement letter to constituents saying your grass is too high. There's algae that's covering the side of your house. People complain about high grass because it looks bad. Algae also looks bad, and I would dare say that it does affect your property value. If someone's driving through the neighborhood and your house is for sale and the house next to you is an Adams family house, they're going to say, I don't want to live next to the Adams family house. I want to be in a house where multiple neighbors care about their home.
So I think, yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, we got a couple of questions, so I'll go ahead and Councilman Nash.
I'm a little concerned about this, and tall grass leads to rodents and the like. The leaky gutters lead to diminishing of the house, and the foundation. Algae really doesn't do any damage except cosmetic. And I just would hate, and look, young folks, people my age, can still run the hose. We get it off. We get the wet it and forget it out. But there's some elderly lady or man that just can't get out and do like that anymore. I just hate to see getting an abatement letter. I would rather see the neighbor complaining go over and say, could I help you hose down the side of your house and not make a law here. So I will probably be a no.
Because I want to give a prime example of this, and this is why, you know, I'm very, my mother's 82 years old. She's got a white house. She's got algae on the side of it right now. She can't get out there and clean it, and right now I don't have the time to go out there and clean it. But if they come by, I'm the property owner, and I'm going to be getting the abatement letter. That's where I have a problem with it, that there's going to be elderly people out there that are going to be getting these letters, and elderly people just freak out, you know, about the least little thing, and then it gets on their mind and they can't let it go. I believe in having beautiful neighborhoods. I think anybody will tell you, especially Rosie, I am Hub Nashville queen. I mean, anytime I see anything that needs to be done, I don't care where it is in Nashville, I stop, take a picture, and put it in Hub Nashville. But I don't know, I just think this would be hard to monitor. I think it would bring a lot of negative to the elderly. I wish there was a fine line there, but it's not. And I'm just speaking out of experience. So that's why I wasn't in support of it, just so you know.
Thank you, Councilmember Webb.
Go ahead.
Still love you.
Thank you.
So I appreciate both of your points. And certainly for the elderly, this is not intended for it to be a burden on them. I think your suggestion, like, oh, hey, there's a neighbor that will say, can I just help you out? For me, if we had that, right, we wouldn't have high grass, because the same elderly neighbor might have high grass and they're still getting an abatement letter. So this really falls into said same bucket. I hear you, high grass, maybe rodents, it's still also unsightly. And so it also leads to neighborhood complaints. And perhaps you guys are not getting complaints about these. And so that's you. I can say, I definitely, and yes, I think it is an issue. I don't know, you know, how prevalent it is in certain parts of town, but it is something that in year 5, I can say I have had more than one phone call about, and I've had to say codes doesn't cover algae, but they're asking about that. And maybe the house has high grass and also a broken fence, and so only 2 things could get done, but they're upset because the algae looks horrible, and it brings down the property value because it looks bad.
Councilmember Benton.
Anybody from legal that might be able to help us? For instance.
We've got someone from council legal.
Yeah. Is that something that would be a challenge with the state as far as if it was just focused on algae, now that we've taken care of the gutters and that's not going to be a problem because it's already on the books? Do you think that we would get a challenge?
To be honest, I've personally reviewed the state law on this issue, and I would need to review it before giving a perspective on that. I apologize.
Be interested in a deferral so we can clear that part up.
I'm happy to if it gets you back to a yes, that's great. I'm going to accept
nothing.
Jennifer's no. I will accept Nash's no. Isaac over here, as usual, keeping all his cards to the vest. I have to wait till the vote comes up to find out where he is. And Bradford, I don't know where he's going either. So you know what? I'm happy to do a one-meeting deferral and answer any more questions that you all may have.
Can I have another comment, Chair?
I will go ahead and allow it, even though we're on the deferral motion. Go ahead.
I mean, I want Nashville to be clean, and I want people to take care of their houses. I just don't know if this is the way. I mean, I would like for us to, think about, how can we enhance people to want to take better care of where they live? Because there is a lot of people, and then I was just sitting here thinking, what about the people that own the rental property? A lot of time the rental properties, the maintenance is up to the person living there, but then you bring the homeowner into it. I mean,
Well, that gets, well, I don't
I'm
know
just saying
how
there's some
things go.
gray area this, and
But
I
if
think
it's
we
the
just need-
homeowner's responsibility, that is on them. They could pass that, like, oh, I had to pay for someone to come and clean the house. I'm adding that to your rent for next month,
Yeah,
right?
it don't
So
work that easy when you're the landlord.
that's why you need to talk to some of the landlords in my area. They do that all the time. But yes, I am happy for a one-meeting deferral. That is fine.
All right, so motion and a second.
Come on
Took in
now.
that first meeting.
Look at
All those in,
Thirded something.
all those in favor of deferring this for one meeting? Aye. All right.
Now you know where he stands.
Yeah, right? On the deferral.
Deferral.
All right.
But, I mean, how can we have an open discussion to talk about it, about how we can make Nashville and the homeowners more?
Well, I think it's a hard thing to the points that you're making, right? Because you
Right.
have the perspective of what happens when I'm no longer able to go outside and I want to spray and take care of something. If you're the homeowner and you don't have that great neighbor who says, man, I see that you're in need and I'm able-bodied, let me come in, or let me go and ask the other neighbors, we'll come over and we'll help fix your house up. If you've got neighbors that are like, that's an ugly house, my house looks good, right? That is where we run into what we can't enforce. And I know it's frustrating, but I also, unfortunately, it's the accountability measure that begins to get people to change their behavior. Because if I say, right now we have a code, high grass, broken fence, they know their house looks horrible, maybe it also has a broken shutter and no one has reported that, they're gonna leave it. And so there's still complaints coming in, but it's not changing, and it's not changing their behavior. So I'm not sure what the fix on that is other than the tools that are available to us, which is changing the code.
Listening to this conversation, I'm wondering if maybe, and this may, I don't know if this would be codes, if this would be legal, or where this would fall. But when we send an abatement letter for whatever, whether it's algae, high grass, whatever, and the individual comes, if it gets to the point the individual has to come to court, can there be a list, or even with the initial abatement letter, a list or letter saying, if you are physically unable to make these repairs,
I like that.
here is a resource, like either direct them to a community resource center or neighbor to neighbor. Figure out what kind of entity in Nashville could potentially help them. So that's a question for legal and codes to kind of think about. Is that something we can
Something
maybe?
you'd like to come back with?
We have a list of resources. It's a community groups, church groups, and things like that our inspectors do provide. It doesn't go out with the abatement letter, so that would need to be a further discussion. We send out about 40,000 abatement letters a year.
So the discussion could be, do we include it with the abatement letter, or is that something we wait until, 30 days comes back, they still haven't fixed it, so now I would like for it not to have to resort to, they find out at court.
At court,
Right.
right.
Yes.
Because that's them to having to take time to come down, so if there's a way we can get that information
And I
out.
will say this is a relatively new resource, and some of the groups specialize in certain things, so we're still
Joy of
trying
art. I'm
to
at
get
your
this put
service.
together.
All right, so I have you,
Okay.
you, and you.
So you got me thinking there. Well, what about all these college students that gotta have these community service hours? Maybe we can come up with something to where we can correlate with the colleges to do something for these people that, I'm always just out thinking outside the box.
I think that's a great idea. Again, I think these are problems that come before us where we have an opportunity to come up with better, with solutions that work for everyone. And so we're taking care of our elderly because I think as just in general as a nation, we are horrible with our elderly. And I love the idea that we could come up with some resources so they're covered.
to your point, I think the letter could reference, if you need help.
Correct.
Call us, so you don't have to then send out 40,000 lists. And I don't know, at the police department, we had to be very careful about recommending anything. Because and so.
Why?
We often get questions about.
Because you're favoring one person over another, one business over another
government has to be
business.
If it's college students, like if that was something that was a bit that could be used as a resource, where we have college students that are in need of volunteer hours, that's not any particular group, right? It's a
But
student.
they gotta have them, every Tennessee promise.
That's illegal.
They recommend somebody, they do damage to a house,
Legal
who's
question.
liable?
Can you
I
ask-
mean,
can you
that's
find out for
part of the
that?
problem.
And I think a lot of this will come back when Metro Legal,
Yeah.
when legal takes a
He's
look
like, I
at
might
it.
come to this meeting.
Well, thank you all, because I really appreciate all of your feedback. And this has been a really good conversation, just to address things that are happening in neighborhoods, period. Because even if it's not happening in your district, it's happening someplace else. How do we correct it? Because to the end goal, we want Nashville to be beautiful, all of our communities, and for people to have pride in their neighborhoods.
Okay. We've already deferred the bill, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. We've got one more bill. This is BL 2024-442. This approves amendment number 1 to the contract between the Metropolitan Government and Comcast Business Communications LLC for managed and unmanaged telecommunications services. Do I have a motion?
Oh,
Second?
second then?
Okay. Do we have someone here from Comcast or Metro to kind of discuss this?
I'm from Metro ITS. I
All
can
right, go
discuss
right
this.
ahead.
This is an extension of the existing contract. The existing contract expires in 2026, and all we're doing is extending that time so it aligns up with our other 2 carrier vendors that we have. So when we go to RFP, it is a uniform approach to minimize administrative tasks and everything. We're not adding any additional cost on a monthly basis. We're actually looking at reducing the monthly costs associated with the services during the extension process.
Well, I'll just quickly add, I appreciate y'all bringing this nearly 2 years early because we've had so many issues where, oh, this ends tomorrow.
Next
We need
week.
to pass time. I really
Before the
appreciate
next council meeting.
giving us 2 years advance notice. on this one.
So good job to the second-term council members that complained all of first term. Stop bringing us these bills 1 week before they're due. So thank you. My question is, I have had an issue using Metro services in some of the community centers. And so as we're talking about re-upping this contract, what extra goodies are we going to get? So we can get some better service in the buildings? What's happening?
We're actually actively replacing and adding new services in the community centers. So we
Okay.
are doing new services. We're doing installs right now. And I apologize, the Bell Center, I believe
Yes.
it was.
District
It's in the
okay.
process right now of being installed with new
Okay.
services to get to better bandwidth, also better
Yes.
Wi-Fi at
Excellent.
those
Okay.
locations. So we are doing that. That's not, I won't say directly tied to this, but what this will allow us to do is continue providing those services for a longer period of time without having to go through a one-off contract or an extension specifically for that location.
Okay, I'm satisfied, Chair.
All right. Any further discussion on this one? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So just a recap real quick. So we've got some questions outstanding to codes and Metro Legal in regards to what can be done with the abatement letters and if we can provide resources to individuals who may not be able to do that. I look forward to hearing any feedback we get on that. I appreciate the conversation we've had tonight. We stand adjourned.